Good afternoon, everyone. It's your man Dame DNYDC, host of the Two Mics Up podcast. We're here today. We're trying to do something a little different. We're gonna do this episode. We're gonna do this live today. Kind of a bonus feature in advance of our release tomorrow. Uh, as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Elisa Middleton. How you doing today, Lisa? Bonus
I'm
feature in
good. Hey,
advance of our release
everyone.
tomorrow.
I'm doing well. I mean, after the event yesterday, which was so awesome, the Black Business Expo and Food Truck Festival, it was a very good event. So I'm feeling blessed, and I'm glad to be here.
Same here. It was a wonderful event. Shout out to Ernisha and Tracy Hall, of the VABBD. It was an amazing event yesterday. Lines were uh, long. The food was great. The music, the comedians. It was an awesome event yesterday. So shout out to them. Looking forward to whatever they're going to bring to the community in the future. We are here today. Like I said, we're jumping in into some topics that we've missed. We've been kind of branching out, and we've been really busy and blessed. But we're joined today with Teknesha Robinson, a voice many of you may have heard on her wonderful episode. She's an amazing individual and sister in our community, doing great things. How you doing today, Teknesha?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Oh well, man, we're blessed, and we're just happy to have you here with us. Just to share some thoughts of the events that are going on today in our country. We are going to kind of move to a couple of different topics, but I want to start first, and I'm going to let Technisha open the floor. We're talking about what I like to call the presidential debacle. Um, but they like to say that they're debates with, President Trump and, former Vice President Biden. And Technisha, what's your thoughts or comments about those debates that we've seen so far? I guess the debate in the town hall that we've seen so far. What are your take?
It's definitely something that's unprecedented. Usually, when we do have um, these debates, usually, it's a couple of people and, you're together. One, pandemic has hit, so we're not able to do as many this year, due to the pandemic. And then, of course, the spread of the pandemic, we haven't been able to have as many. So the town hall option, honestly, I thought that it was a little bit better than how the debates were going. I felt like you could really understand a little bit more about what they're trying to say versus just hearing what's going on and maybe the yelling or just not being able to listen to them how you would want to be able to take from what they're saying. So I thought the town hall, although it's unprecedented, I thought it was a better idea than having the debate. So that's my take on it. I feel like you can the people that were there were able to actually ask some questions more so than
Hmm.
just hearing more of an argument. So
Right,
that's my take on that.
Lisa.
I agree. I think that because of the times that we're in with the coronavirus and everything that's going on, it's a little different. But you didn't get to hear much of the issues. It was just more of interrupting, and it was very, the presidential one was very unpresidential,
Very,
and
I agree. I agree.
the president debate, it was okay. But I just feel like in this country we're in a strange place.
Mm,
Like, I think times are changing and things are shifting. So it was just a little difficult and a
hmm.
little unprecedented. So it's something that we're just wasn't used to, as we know former presidential debates, what it really entails and what it looks
Right.
like. And then things were different as well as for the vice president debate, because I just feel like we're so divided.
Mm-hmm.
that it's just like we really can't get to any of the hardcore issues, and people already have made up their mind, so they're in their prospective places.
Right.
So
Right.
I didn't feel it didn't sway anyone one way or the other.
Well, I'd had to agree with you on that. The like I said, the presidential debacle really. I have to put that on the president. It was like having a 5 year old. I mean, really. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. It was like having a 5 year old having a tantrum, and it was very unpresidential, um, in my opinion, to things that we've seen in the past. I
Hmm.
think you really didn't. We didn't really answer any issues in that debate or whatever that was. I think a lot of us really, in my opinion, I lost 2 hours of my life and I couldn't get it back, and it didn't sway. Right, and I think it didn't sway anyone. The only thing that I took from it, the lasting picture of Joe, really, I felt like he really tried to talk to America.
Hmm.
He really tried to rise above, but wasn't. It was
Hmm.
almost like he was brought down into a street fight.
Hmm.
And then to look at the town hall, I thought it was great, like Teknesha said. But again, when I watched that, I didn't really get much from Trump, other than and I hate to say this, the sister that was sitting, who was perfectly set behind him in the corner, and
That
she was
kept
like a bobblehead.
nodding.
She was just like a bobblehead all night. Like that was the only thing that I got from that. But when I went back, because we recorded both, and I watched Biden, this man, I mean, he answered questions. So, and again, I'm not trying to drive anyone to one side or the other, but who do you want to be your president? Someone that's going to sit there and care, and answer your questions, or the guy that's just going to be on the attack? And I mean, really, I didn't get anything from it. And to move forward, like you said, Lisa, with the vice presidential debates, I have to be honest, even in that fact. Look, let's just call it what it is. Kamala is
Kamala.
she Kamala, Miss Harris. She is by far the best presidential candidate. Period. That's what I walked away with. Her polish, her class, her answers. Um, I by far she stood out the most to me, and I mean the fly was really the highlight of Pence's debate. Uh,
The fly was
the
the
fly,
highlight.
he was the
The
highlight.
fly won the debate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically, yeah.
yeah. The fly was the highlight. Yeah. So.
So, yeah. So, Technisha, anything, you know, I know I don't want to put you in office because I see you smiling. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there.
Right.
So, outside of that, what you know, I watched the polls after, and they try to give you an idea of which way the Americans are leaning. Do you feel that either one of them really did much to sway Americans to lean one way or the other, or do you still feel that we're stuck in that same rut, kind of like that equal divide right down the middle?
I feel like we're just in an equal divide, personally, because I think honestly the focus of Americans is the pandemic. Honestly, the future, their economic stability, their families, their children going to school. Honestly, it would. The actual presidential election, it just seems to be kind of like an afterthought or something that we have to do, like the pomp and circumstance of voting. Honestly, I feel like if they never did a town hall, they never did a debate, people in their minds would still know who they're going to vote for. So I feel like a lot of it has been pomp and circumstance, because
Hmm.
honestly we could have done without it this year. I know there were some thoughts of like maybe postponing it, or honestly, you can't vote if you're not alive. So, the focus for, like, I think the majority of Americans is, their families, their economic stability, getting their children educated, and their, things like that. So the voting is, something that's, definitely different this year. I know a lot of people are doing absentee. I know some people are choosing, to go vote in person, early voting, voting by mail. Most of the time, only people who do that is absentee ballots. But now
Hmm.
you have the ability to, vote by vote by mail. So specifically, I'm going to be voting in person. And I've thought about doing early voting, but I'm thinking about just going on the day of. I always usually just vote on the day of, honestly. So I don't know, maybe it's the nostalgia of it.
Mm.
But yeah, so I plan on voting in person. But I feel like to answer your question, I kind of just feel like we're in that equal divide. Every 4 years we kind of go through the same thing, and we listen to some of the same issues, and
Right.
some of the same answers. Some of these answers have been a little bit different this year,
Hmm.
than 4 years ago. But that's because things have changed within the last 4 years. So that's just my take on it.
Okay. Leaf.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally. I think that I don't really pay attention to the polls anymore just because of what happened 4 years ago.
Mm.
So it can be anyone's game at this point, and I do think that the country is equally divided. I don't see the swaying one way or another. I have already voted. I chose to do early voting here in the state of Virginia, so I've already casted my ballot. So I don't think that there are any swing voters. I don't think that there are any
Right.
undecided voters. I think that people are in their retrospective corners and with their parties, and if that exists, then we do have a situation where we're trying to parties are not so much as getting popular, like the Democratic Party and then the Republican Party. You hear a lot of talk about, as far as Black America, where we stand in either party. So we have a lot going on.
Hmm. I mean, that's interesting. I don't know why I feel I agree with what both you're saying, but I do feel that there's a those who are non-committed or uncommitted. For I really think those are going to be the ones to move this election one way or the other. And I hate to say it, I don't know why I think it's going to be, um, our black votes. It just seems to come down to that, and I don't know what it's going to take for us to. I don't want to say pick a side because I've talked about I'm not really about sides anymore. I'm more about the best person. I want the best person to do the job. I could really care less about party anymore because really neither party really cares about us. I mean, let's just call it what it is. We look here in Virginia, what we're dealing with, in our congressional district, with Qasim Rashid and Whitman. Whitman is going on a full out attack on this man's race and his culture and things that he's saying on Twitter, and it's just like, that's fear. Again, when I look at that, that's that, and I want to call it Republican fear, but that seems to be their fear. I look at him; he has a lot of Trump ways or Trumpism in it when it comes to trying to fight this political battle. And I just think we need to show up and pick the best person. And when I look at those two, I'm looking at Qasim and Whitman, I just see the best person and Qasim Rashid. That's just my take. And I just think if I see that here on a local level, I think that's how we need to start looking at it from a local to a federal level, and on a presidential level, look for the best person. But with that being said, Teknesha touched on the upcoming elections, and you guys were talking about elections and early voting. My wife and I are trying to figure out pretty much the same thing. Do we want to go vote early? Do we want to go out and stay traditional? But with COVID, I'm kind of having a hard time. I think I want to go sneak in the back door because Lisa said she's already done, her early voting, and I would
Mm.
be interested, since you've done it early already, Lisa, and Technician and I are kind of in the I guess in the lurch here. What really outside of COVID, or what was the other factors that really made you want to go out and vote early? Because maybe there's some people that are listening that are kind of stuck in that gray area, like Technician and I.
Well, I just voted early because one, I don't want to stand on long lines. That's number one.
Mm.
And number two, I work on
Mm-hmm.
election day.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to make sure that my ballot was cast. It was a very easy process. It's the same process that you go through when you go on November 3rd. You
Hmm.
get your ballot, you fill it out, and you put it into the computer, and it counts your ballot. The upside to that is you get to avoid the long lines, and machines breaking
Hmm. Hmm.
from the overload of November the 3rd, and just other little things. But I just found it very easy. It took me 5 minutes from park to vote to back to my car.
Oh, wow.
It was effortless,
Hmm.
and so I just found it to be convenient.
Okay.
This is my first year early voting. I just felt like, let me vote now, because I already witnessed and been a part of voter suppression. So
Mm.
I felt like, let me try to do this today and see how this half works. The early voting, because I always usually vote on the 3rd.
So real quick, not to cut. So voters, what experience? You mentioned, because I've never experienced any type of voter suppression, or that I'm aware of. Can
Mm-hmm.
you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so when I was in New York, when I lived in New York, they have very, very, at that time, let me say this is a
Hmm.
while ago, but voter suppression is not new.
Right.
So, but they have very, very long lines and antiquated system at that time. And then you had machines that weren't working, and you just experience that long, long wait. And if you had to go to work, and what we see in Georgia and other places
Hmm.
now today, if you have to go to work, you can't wait on a 12-hour line like in
Right.
Georgia.
Mm.
That just was last week. I mean, they had people out there waiting for 12 hours
Right.
to vote. And that is a form of voter suppression, because it should not take you 12 hours to do anything that
Hmm.
your liberty living in
Right.
this
Right.
country should grant you. So I just thought I'd try early voting.
Okay.
The voter suppression this year has been definitely heightened from what I've seen, especially with the mail-in ballots. You've seen, male people, well, not all male people, obviously, but some are, throwing the mail
No
away,
way. Right.
or they're creating fake boxes where you would put your ballot in. And, people look for convenience sometimes. They're like, oh, a ballot here, I can just drop it here. And then, that vote is never counted. Making sure your ID now is like the real ID,
Hmm.
because a lot of people in Virginia didn't have a real ID before. So making sure that your address on your license is the same address that they have in the system. It's a lot that's taken into consideration, with voter suppression. In the past, during like the civil rights movement, we had literacy tests. Like if you couldn't read, you couldn't vote.
Hmm.
Um, and that was one of the ways to keep people from voting. Voting is a very powerful privilege that we have as American citizens. And so many people have, fought for the right for us to be able to vote, not just in this country, but even in other countries.
Right.
I know, and let's just say South Africa, their first time voting as a Africans,
Yep.
Indians, the colors, all of that was 1994, which
Hmm.
was only 26 years ago. That was their first time voting. So for the people here, it's such a privilege, and they're like, oh, I'm not voting because I don't like either of the candidates. But you're not taking into consideration that you're not just voting for the candidates. What's happening right now is the Supreme Court. We're trying to confirm a new judge, a new
Hmm.
judge. That's one of the things that you're voting for when you go to vote. It's
Right.
not just, and it goes down from the local level all the way up. So when you're decide not to vote, it's more than not being able to pick who you want to run the country. So
Well,
yeah.
you touched on a very good point. Yesterday, at the fair, had quite a few people come up and ask what the podcast was about. And we told them, the gist of the podcast is really to educate, empower, and impact, the community. And one of the things that you just spoke on, Teknesha, was I had a young man come up, and I asked him the same thing, like, do you know, I believe he lived in Stafford County, and I asked him, do you know who your sheriff is? Do you know who the judges are? And he was like, I really have no idea. And I said, these are the times that you need to vote, because in what you just said, these are the people that are writing laws and enforcing laws on people that look like you and I. But if you don't know who they are and you don't know what platforms they're standing on, then you're really putting yourself and people that look just like you in a situation. And we have to educate ourselves to know what's going on with our community, so that we can go out and vote. And just in what you said, it starts locally and it escalates from level to level to level. This president himself, he's put, I think, what was it, like 280 some judges have been appointed to the courts. Not one of them is a person of color. That tells you all you need to know. And it's done in a manner where it's put in our face, but we don't read anymore. It's put in our newspapers and things like that, but we don't read. We don't know where to go, and that's what this platform was really developed for. That we can help start educating people on places to go, things that they need to read to help not only improve themselves but improve our community. And just to move forward and touching on that, we reached out to you, Teknesha, really about this whole Ice Cube situation. And
Yes.
you have posted something that Lisa and I both saw, and we were, well, I know it definitely touched me, but we were both like, yeah, we really need to reach out to you, um, because I thought it was poignant in what you said and what you put out there. So could you just share, if you could, paraphrase or whatever, what you posted, and let's go ahead and dive into that conversation that we're dealing with Ice Cube today.
Okay, so as we know, Ice Cube spearheaded a program called the Platinum Project. The Platinum Project is like the contract for Black America, which he outlined in 22 pages. So in this, he is specifically talking to the people who are in power, how we can help Black Americans, specifically those who are descendants of slavery, how we can promote racial equality and racial economic justice. As we know, here in America, we're still, in the fight for racial equality, economic justice here in America. So he didn't reach out to either one of the parties. What he did was he outlined it, and the Democratic Party, they were like, hey, we like what you have here. Let's talk about it after the election. Then, the Republicans was like, hey, we like what you have here. Let's talk about this now, basically in a nutshell. So he had in my opinion, courage to be able to work with someone who has opposing views. And if you think about it, right? So what I said in my post was, I really look up to like Nelson Mandela and a lot of the things that he stood for and what he went through in his life. This man was in prison for a lot of his life. People say 27 years, but actually it was more than 27 years. You got to think about before he was actually in prison for high treason, as they called it. He was in prison during another treason trial in the 50s. In the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
he went to jail. He didn't get out to 1990. So he went to jail because he was a political prisoner. He was trying to fight for the rights of all Africans in South Africa. When he got out, he could have, been like, let's tolerate against these people. They're not going to rule our country. We're going to take back our country. We're going to treat them just as wrong as they've treated us. And honestly, the violence would have been way worse than it was in that country at that time. They were at the brink of a civil war. Instead, he got out. He had the courage to work with the same government that oppressed his people for, 80 years before that. With the system of apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
So he got out and he taught, about racial reconciliation. Hey, this is their country just as much as it is ours. How can we work together? It took from 1990 to 1994 for them to come up with a completely new constitution with a non-racial government, because everything in that government was like literally like, okay, if you're African, you do this, and not just if you're African. It's like if you're Zulu, if you're part of the Bantu tribe, if you're
Mm-hmm.
Indian, you're over here. If you're colored, you're over here. The same government that, would pull people from their house and put them on homelands, the equivalent of like what we call a reservation here, like for the Native Americans. He was able to. I don't know if he forgave them, or if he was just like, what, in order to promote a new country, we're going to have to work with our oppressors. We're going to have to work with the
Mm-hmm.
opposition. Just like here in America, right? Martin Luther King, he had to talk to John F. Kennedy. He had to talk to Lyndon B. Johnson. He
Mm-hmm.
had to talk to the president, because he's the head of state. So if he would have never had those conversations with the opposition, we may have never gotten the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying Martin Luther King was the one that, is the reason for it, but he had to have those tough conversations about the grievances of Black people in this country.
Right.
What Ice Cube has done, he has outlined, hey, how can we help Black Americans here? Because each party needs to have a Black agenda. We're not just one to just give up our vote. They have to have some type of a Black agenda. So I think that what he did was he has the courage to work with the opposition, just like Nelson Mandela had the right to work, and they created a new country, new national government. We had, laws every so often within the Civil Rights Act that has, Civil Rights movement that has promoted, how our lives are today. Have we gotten, 100% of what we want? No, we're not even halfway there. But it takes those tough conversations to be able to work with our opposition, our oppressors, in order to promote change here in America. You can't just stay on your side of the fence and they stay on their side of the fence and we expect change to happen. So I've seen, the tweets. I've seen, some of the, he's a pawn. He's, just a part in their scheme, to get more Black votes and things like that. But for those people who are saying that, my thing is, what are you doing to promote, the Black agenda? What do what do you feel he should have done? The same man who wrote, F the police, and just 2 years ago, he wrote a song called Arrest the President. He is not trying to be best friends, with this, current administration. What he's trying to do is just promote the Black agenda. And, unfortunately, the party, I guess the opposing party, is the one who reached out to him. So, my question would be like, what would you do? Would you just say, no, I don't want to work with you, even though currently this administration is the one in, power, so to speak? Or would you be like, hey, let's work together, see what we can, get accomplished, things like that. So that's my big thing, is that, we have to learn that this country is, we're the United States of America. We may not feel, a lot of patriotism. Some people may
Mm-hmm.
not feel patriotic, but we are a nation divided right now. And sometimes it just takes that person who can, kind of come together from one side and come together from another side to kind of bring a change that happens. I always, go back to the in my mind, one of the greatest examples is history. I feel like experience is the best teacher.
Mm-hmm.
What can we learn from the past to help promote us to the future? What we've learned from the past is that we have to work together in order to create something new.
Agreed.
When schools were segregated, we had to
Mm.
have someone come together to say, hey, this is wrong, this is not right, this is not working, to, be, now that we have, unsegregated schools. Now, we still have those districts where you can, go to a school and it's like mostly Black, but that's not the law anymore. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on the issue. I feel like what Ice Cube did was courageous, to be able to work with the
Mm.
opposition.
Lise?
Well, I just have a lot to unpack with the Ice Cube situation. First, Ice Cube came up with the contract with Black America. Has nothing to do with platinum, has nothing to do with Donald Trump's platinum plan. He came up with the contract because he understands that no matter who we vote for, we always somehow wind up on the bottom.
Mm.
So let's be clear what's in the contract. We need to, he was saying, get rid of language that says minority. because when we know that what minority means, it doesn't always mean, it means other people than black people.
Mhm.
He wanted
Mhm.
Right.
specific for black people.
Black.
A
Mhm.
minority
Right.
could be a white woman.
Mhm.
And when we start clumping ourselves into the minority, or other people clump us into a minority of people of color, then that means you're opening up to other people of color, because we are not the only people of color. So he wanted to be very specific in
Yes.
the reparations for black America, because we have a black agenda.
Mhm.
What I find is that I think that his intentions were real. I think
Mhm.
that I don't ever think that Ice Cube is a sellout.
Mhm.
Ice Cube put this out a few months ago, and he also asked for help
Mhm.
in kind of crafting and getting it to where it needs to be. One thing that I think that he did wrong is timing. Timing is always important when we are doing an agenda.
Mhm.
You know, Dame, that we've talked about this months, way months
Mhm.
ago, because we're in the middle of an election season. So the same way that we feel that the timing is wrong, that they shouldn't be electing a new judge to the Supreme Court because
Right.
we're in the middle of an election, I
Right.
think the timing is wrong. But I also think that what he's saying is correct. I think that he just did not have the political know-how to get it done in a fashion, whereas this could be crafted. But we have to also know that we need protection,
Mhm.
because what happened was he did present this contract with Black America to both parties. The Democratic Party said we agree with 85% of it, but
Mhm.
let's talk about it after the election.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Trump already had put out the platinum plan. That had nothing to do with Ice Cube's contract with America.
Right.
So what he did was say, well, I have this plan already, and it's $300 billion, $300 billion that's on the table. So I believe that Ice Cube didn't understand the breakdown of the
Mhm.
$300 billion.
Right.
And he said, okay, at least we're in a conversation. At least you are, crafting something for Black America. However, this statement was put out 4 days before Trump's campaign. Ice Cube made a video 4 days before this White House personnel or campaign, whoever this lady is, tweeted this
Mhm.
tweet. Now, in his original statement, he said, "I do not trust either side of this. I'm just trying to get us in a better position,"
Right.
which he is correct. We cannot keep clumping ourselves in with the rest of America.
Mhm.
We
Right.
have problems specific to Black America.
Correct.
We need to have a conversation with the United States of America and Black people.
Mhm.
Our conversation does not have anything to do with anyone else or anything else. We need to talk about us.
Right.
So unpacking that, I think that his intentions was right. I think that he would have benefited from maybe speaking to activists on the ground, or maybe having some guidance from, like, the Black Caucus,
Mhm.
because everything that is in Ice Cube's contract with America is actually sitting on the floor in
Mhm.
Congress,
Right.
right?
Right.
So because he has the platform, the strategy should be, hey, this is what we're asking for. Let's everybody rally together, stay united, and
Mhm.
push this agenda. But instead, because someone else tweeted, a lie, a political ploy that was untrue, we fell victim to what we always do, and that's attacking and tearing down our own. Not one time did anyone look for the truth. Then no one looked for the 4-day video that was already out. We just went off of what this lady out of Trump's campaign said, and we tore Ice Cube up like we've
You sure
never
did.
met him.
Sure
Like
did.
we do not know this man or his character because we
Right.
simply did not know what the truth was, or we didn't read to get the truth. And
Right.
that is the real problem with us as
Mm-hmm.
black people.
Mm-hmm.
I may not agree with everything Teknesha says, and me and you, Dame, we don't agree
Agree.
on a
A
lot of
lot of
things.
things. Right.
But the respect factor has to come in somewhere.
Agreed.
Now we tore him up in public,
Mm-hmm.
divided
Mm-hmm.
as usual.
Right.
So what does this look like in the eyes of those who mission
Mm-hmm.
it is to keep us afoot?
Man, I hate to say it, they did exactly what they wanted. They got they knew what we were going to do. We proved them right again. You know, by our response.
A lot of people didn't even read the contract to Black America
Of
for
course not.
they just was like, oh my God, Ice Cube's
Are
working
you,
with the current president. Oh my God, what are we gonna
Right.
do? Oh my God,
Right.
like he's a sellout now. Like they
Right.
finally got
He's
him. It's
kind.
all about business. It's literally no one. Yeah, like sometimes it's just like, hey, sit down, stop being so emotional, read what it
Thank
is.
you.
Read what's going on. Read behind it. He shouldn't have to defend himself on Twitter when he's trying to defend himself in writing.
Right. In writing. Exactly.
So and specifically for us, like because like he said, it's not for all minorities. It's literally for Black America.
Mm-hmm.
Those people whose lineages or families came over here, forcibly. So I just it kind of for the people who are Christians, it's like God came down to in our beliefs is to die for us for our sins, and then some people still reject him. It's
Right.
just like this, and in my opinion, not comparing the two to him. You, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the
I'm not
same.
trying
It's
to
the
say
concept. It's the
It's the
same
concept.
right
concept,
Right. It's
and
the
I get
concept.
that.
because
Right.
And, and
yeah,
Mhm.
and at some point, we are never going to get from under the foot of the United States of America if we do not unite at some point.
yeah, we
Mhm.
have to
Now,
unite.
we
Yeah.
have to unite. Now, did we agree with the way that Trump's campaign politicized the contract with Black America? Because if you look or if you've read the Platinum Plan did, of Donald Trump, if you've read it, then I challenge you to see where is this money going, because the
Right.
bulk of the money is going to infrastructure.
Exactly.
The bulk of the money is going to infrastructure, and it just says federal funds. That means federal funds are available to everyone who applies. It has nothing to do with Black America. Now, I understand that people are for Biden. I have the younger group. I get that they are like, what have the Democratic Party done for Black America? Here's the setup.
Mhm.
If you are willing to change parties or to create our own party or to hold the Democratic and the Republican Party accountable for Black America, and to have this separate conversation with Black America, then the time is now to form that. But we're 20 something days out from the election. Timing is everything. And I just think that, I mean, because you already know how I feel. I cast my ballot. I did that. I did that for the greater good. But I have my issues with the DNC. I
Mhm.
do. I'm not going to say that I don't. I have my issues with the Democratic National Party. I have my issues with America. I have my issues with the Republican Party. But my issues, I casted my ballot on the greater good because I know that demon Black Lives Matter terrorist groups, having death threats on protesters, having illegal sanctions placed on protesters, and things like that is something near and dear to my heart. So I cast my ballot because of the greater good. Now, moving forward, should we let the Democratic Party know or the Republican Party know that we have a 10-point agenda and someone is going to deal with this 10-point agenda, or there will be a fallout from the Black community and those that support us?
I think we've touched on it. We need to figure. We need to figure out a way. I agree with everything both of you said, and I'll just say this in closing on this point. I think the timing of it was terrible. Um, but I agree with everything that he intended to do and will probably do. He was a man of his word because when he started this, he said his intent was to work with the party that was willing to meet with him halfway. And although we know Trump uses the stage to his benefit, and that's what he did, he turned an opportunity into a chance for him to better himself in the face of the Black community. I don't want to call this a Kanye situation, but it's just kind of reminiscent of the grandstanding that the Trump administration tends to do when it comes to us. And I'm just going to leave it there. But I applaud Ice Cube for standing on his word, and he did. I do agree, like Teknesha said, sometimes you have to work with your opposition to get change. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I applaud him, and I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm going to move into something that Lise, I know is very um, near and dear to you. I want to use Teknesha's word because I agree with her. When it comes to Breonna Taylor, I kind of waited on this on purpose. Um, it's a very touchy situation, and anger tends to be the first emotion that comes up. And I wanted to wait because I didn't want to talk about this from an angry point of view. We get very emotional. Some time has passed, and I wanted to also allow some other things come to light. With her case. But I'm going to let Lisa begin and touch on Breonna Taylor. Your thoughts on the verdict and kind of where we've moved. Since this thing is unpacked over the last month or so.
The Taylor case to me is a total cover up, a sham, and a disservice to the people of the United States and to the citizens of Kentucky. I know for a fact that this case has been covered up. There's lies going on, and Daniel Cameron, the
Mm,
Attorney General, there in Kentucky, is playing politics with the citizens of Kentucky. Anytime that a grand juror has to file a motion to speak and have the records released, we know that you are lying and that you are basically for political gain at this point, and that is
mhm,
the definition of a sellout.
mhm,
When you oppress someone for gain of your own. So that is what Daniel Cameron has done with the Breonna Taylor case. He should be removed from this case. I think that we need a new grand jury hearing because even from the beginning of this case, it stinks.
mhm,
It stinks
mhm.
when from getting the warrant to going in that home, and you cannot live in a stand your ground state and fire a warning shot and get over 32 bullets shot back at you.
Mhm.
Now, in the state of Kentucky is a stand your ground state. This man
Mhm.
had a right to stand his ground because he did not know it was the police. It's so evident
Right.
that he
Right.
did not know it was the police. It was evident from the 911 call. It was evident to when he came out. He thought that they were coming there to help Breonna.
Right.
He did not know that it was the police. Even as you watch the body cam footage, he's crying, saying, "What's going on? What's happening?" He is so confused because why would this man call the police on the police if he
Right.
knew it was the police? They
Right.
had no reason not to open up that door. They didn't have drugs in there. They didn't have anything illegal in that apartment. It
Hmm.
was a botched job and it was being covered up. The law was not followed. The officer should have been immediately assigned another officer and escorted to the police station. However, this man, Mattingly, was missing for
Hmm.
3 hours
Hmm.
afterwards, and he entered an active crime scene.
Right.
So it stinks from hell to high water what they're doing. It is a cover up. And I think that when all of the evidence come out, Kentucky should be ashamed of themselves. We already know the racial undertone in this case. So Daniel Cameron, being the attorney general, has not done anything. They would taught a black man, but he's not the black man for the people. He's
Hmm.
the black man for his political gain. He
Hmm.
lied at his press conference and said that the grand jury decided not to bring
Right.
charges against the police when the grand jury was not even presented with that
Right.
charge or
Right.
any evidence. And the grand jury had, I listened to that tape. I committed myself to listen to those hearings. And the grand jury was very inquisitive. They
Hmm.
had questions, but they were blocked. Like now, he's just filed a motion to silence the
Right.
grand jury. This woman was killed. So how can you, in a stand your ground state, stand your ground only when it's the police breaking into your house? It don't
Well,
work.
the sad thing about this whole thing before we transitioned it to a Teknesha, doing some research. So this same unit was involved in a very similar instance where they broke into a home and shot up the people in the home. Not even 2 years prior. The same unit. So that for me, when I remember hearing some people like Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal talking about charges that her boyfriend should receive for firing at the police. You know, the police were doing their job, so I'll give them that. But someone has to be held accountable because this is not just a rare instance. To me, more than once means that there's an abuse of power somewhere, and that needs to be whether it be the captain, somebody in the governor or the mayor's office. Someone needs to be charged because this does. If it happens more than once, then someone is really abusing their power, and there's something else going on here that stinks. Daniel Cameron, I'm not even going to talk about this dude. I'm not going to give him breath. I'm not going to give him life because he's a worthless piece of. Anyway, I'm just going to keep it. I'm going to keep it there because I can't. I'm not even going to do it with this brother. Um, Teknesha, your thoughts on this?
So the Breonna Taylor case, it's a grave injustice that was done to her. I mean, here was a young woman who was a paramedic, and she had ambitions of becoming a nurse because she wanted to help people. Being a paramedic, in itself is very stressful. It's a high stress job, but it's definitely something where you're helping people.
Hmm.
And then the whole thing that happened with her, it just was so sad. It's like, can you do anything, and not, it's like you can, do all the right things. You have a great career. You can, help people, be a volunteer, and, something bad can still happen to you in this country. And then people are not found to justice, or are not, the actual equal justice under the law is not followed. In this country, justice is actually up to the person who's giving out the justice. It seems like it's not like a playing field, or a level playing field when it comes to justice. Because if that was a situation reversed, and I feel like I said, it depends on who's the person giving out the justice. Because if the same situation would have happened with different cultures or different people, I feel like some of the actual what happened to that officer would be different, would happen differently. I know if you want to just go back in history, you have a little kid who was lied on. We all know the story at Emmett Till, and just because something that he did or didn't do, because he actually didn't do it, and we all saw what happened to him. We all saw what happened to um, the black police officer that I think something happened with him. He's a black police. He's actually in jail now, and it
In
was
Minneapolis,
Minneapolis
the
guy.
black
Yep.
police
Hmm.
officer,
yeah, and
Muslim
Hmm.
Minneapolis.
brother, in
Yes,
Minneapolis, a Muslim brother. He was accidentally shot a
Hmm.
white woman,
Yep.
and he's
yes,
serving 12 years. And it was
Yep.
justice was came very very swift for him.
Yep.
yeah. So it's not the same, justice system here, which is why I think even the contract for America is so important, because we do need that equal level playing field here when it comes to justice. When you take your whatever job you have, when you take your uniform all at night, we're all human beings. We all have the same color blood. No one has a different color of blood. So if you shoot a person, you kill a person, you need to be you need to be held accountable for what you're doing. Now, if it's your job, then we need to dig into this. Like, why did this happen? Was there a lack in protocol? Which
Hmm.
definitely happened here.
Yep.
They need to start, at that higher level. Like, hey, we need to start these. We need to change these protocols. One of the things that I heard Kamala say is that if her and Joe win the presidency, they're going to ban chokeholds, because if the chokeholds were illegal, George Floyd probably would still be here. Um, Maybe not, fate, if you're thinking about that, but who knows? I just think that we definitely need to have those tough conversations and make changes. And that's the problem that I see, is that we have these tough conversations, but they throw money at it, and then no changes are made. Like, what changes have they done in the Louisville area for their police department? What changes have they made after this whole Breonna Taylor case? Have they just been like, oh, they're always getting upset when a black person is killed by a police officer? Nothing's going to change. We're just going to throw some money at it and wait till the next one happens, and then we're in this vicious cycle again. So, my opinion about the entire situation is a grave injustice. I don't feel that justice was served. I feel like Breonna Taylor, she her life um she her life was cut short, and unfortunately her boyfriend, who said that it was his, not only his girlfriend but his best friend, has
Hmm.
to live with not only that guilt but that fear, that that trauma of seeing his best friend taken out by the people who are supposed to protect and serve.
Well said. Yeah, it's rough. I feel you, Leaf.
And and this is where I have issues, having worked in the police department for 10 years. I just have real serious issues with people that do not want to reform or transform or dismantle, defund, whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
this existing the way that we police, and the way that things are done when it comes to black people. And I don't support any one that does not even want to have the conversation. I don't support anyone that just says that systemic racism doesn't exist. I don't support anyone that says that we are exaggerating as black people, that
Hmm.
it's only 1,000, 1,000 or 1,200 people are killed by the police. That's too much.
Hmm.
Like, just you,
Right.
so you want to minimize those lives like that are innocently lost? Those are people are attached to someone. These are
Hmm.
people who are unarmed.
Right.
These are people who are not a threat. But when it comes to where we stand um, on any issue as black people in this country, we are always at the absolute bottom of the equation. And I'm saying that enough of that is enough. We're done with that. And black people have to realize that we cannot sit home on our couches. We cannot Twitter this thing to death. We cannot watch it from our TVs like it's a soap opera. I understand that people are upset with Ice Cube. Listen, forgive him like he's your uncle. Get on the
Mm-hmm.
get with the contract for Black America, get with the caucus, get out in these streets, understand that after you vote, you need to hold these people accountable. It sounds like a slogan to some
Right.
people. Like, so how do you hold them accountable? How do you do this? The same way that we out in the street marching against the police, you could march against your politicians. Show up at their door. Until freedom was parked in front of Daniel Cameron's house for
Right.
22 days. You
Mm.
understand?
No, I hear you.
Nobody would know who Daniel Cameron was if it was not for the protesters on the ground putting him out there, putting his agenda and showing to people that this is wrong, what he's
He was
doing, what
doing.
he's saying
Mm-hmm.
is a lie. And we need to keep that same energy up when it comes to what affects us. We're at the bottom. We've been at the bottom. Now we have some real choices to make here.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just follow suit. And Ice Cube is not wrong for saying that we are, after this election, I think that we should let the United States know that Black America is no longer giving away free votes.
Mm-hmm.
We're no longer doing
We
that. We're breaking
we said
from
that.
I
We
said this last year,
we
but
said this a long time ago. It's time for us to
nobody
get away
really,
from the table.
you got to be easy when you're talking to black people who are Democrats, because then, like, going to any other, it don't even have to be a Republican Party. There's an independent party that as well. We have to break up this two-party system anyway.
Well,
We have to break up the way politics are done with capitalism and money. The more money you got, the more money you have, then the one wins. We got a lot of work to do, but we have to stay focused and understand. I get it. I get that people want Trump out. I get it. I get that we are voting to get this. But what if he wins?
mm, because that's a reality that I think a lot of people don't really seem to. I don't want to say embrace, but realize that it's a reality. He could win again, and that's really a whole nother topic of conversation that we can come back next week and talk about. Um, and it's a lot in what you said. Just in breaking up the two-party system. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of independent. Look, the last time I checked, in 2020, third parties and independents, it's got to be close to 100. So just let that number resonate and sink in.
Right.
Outside of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, there's close to my last check, and I got tired of reading. But third party candidates and independents is close to 100 that have the opportunity to be voted for president. So, and we let the media, the mainstream media, dictate to us who our only two options are, which is a problem here in America. And real quick, just to jump in on that, I want to shout out, Diddy for, organizing, and trying to strategize, the organization of the Black Party. He announced yesterday, great idea, great concept. But again, I think this is something that we really need to look at. We've talked about it before, and what you just said, Lisa. What happens with this election, win, lose, or draw? The black community needs to push itself away from the table. We need to just get up and walk away and come together as a united block and really build ourselves up from within, whether that be through education, through economics, through, our own infrastructure. All of these things that are laid out in this country that this country denies us of having
Daily.
daily. We have the skills and the capabilities as a collective to go ahead and really it starts with us. So we need to go ahead and figure out, like I said, getting away from the table for the next 4 years or the next 2 year cycle, whatever it may be. We got to start somewhere. Push yourself away from the table
And
and
I
start start
agree.
start from within. That's what we really need to do.
I agree. I just feel like that we need to align ourselves and position ourselves as a viable. We need to, because our vote is definitely powerful. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. I feel like I went out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that our vote is definitely powerful, else you would not be trying so hard to suppress it. I think that here's the thing with us, though. We have to understand that our political agenda is very, very, very different from anyone else's. And we have to understand that as collective body, as one, that we cannot individually attack people who are trying to help. He didn't write the contract for the crack. How he didn't write you know what I'm saying? He wrote
Right.
that, he wrote a contract for Black America that means you and me. And even if you didn't agree, that he did it for both parties. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what we have to understand. I think that people, we have to understand that. I think that people are so laser focused on Trump that as soon
Right.
as you hear someone had a conversation with Trump, you feel like, oh my goodness, you know what I'm saying? But here's the deal: what are you gonna do if this man wins? Because he has a chance to do that. I know people don't like to hear that, but he does have a chance to get in office. Do we send the Black Caucus along with Ice Cube's contract with Black America? Do we rally behind these ideals? Do we rally behind this agenda either way it goes? Do we stand behind it in the streets? Do we stand behind it politically and push our agenda and say, because this is it? You either get with us or we're gone from this. Who is going to support this agenda? Either way, everyone can say while they're running that, I'll get with this, and they have campaign promises and they never come to fruition, right? We've seen that with the Trump campaign. Everything that he's promised, over 70 some odd promises, have not came to fruition. So where do we go from here? Where do we go if the Dems or Democratic Party get in? And it is Biden. We have to hold these people accountable regardless. We have to get out our feelings and get on this business cap and get this agenda pushed, because it's 2020, and I'm saying that we have the best and the brightest in our young people. They don't always agree with us, but they are the best and the brightest, and they're right. We have got to stop blindly supporting Democrats who do not have our best interests at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Well,
I agree.
Teknesha, I see you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely need to vote based off our values and who is that candidate that best represents our values. If it's, if you're a Democrat and you want to vote for a Republican, if you're a Republican and you want to vote for a Democrat, it doesn't matter. Honestly, I like the idea of having, like another party, from, because it's like if we, you know, don't have like in a situation like this where some people might feel like, oh man, I'm not voting at all because, I just don't support either one of them. People 4 years ago were saying like, oh my God, I'm definitely not voting, which really hurt us in the long run, because it's like 4 years ago people were like, oh my God, I'm not voting. These candidates are just not for me. I don't agree with either one of them, so I'm just not going to vote. Well, I definitely think now, more people are one, being pushed to vote, being encouraged to vote, I should say, not pushed, but encouraged to vote. I think that we're taking a look at the hard issues now, not just, hey, traditionally we, since the 1964 Civil Rights Act, blacks have been Democrats, and then they've been sprinkled in the Republican Party. But do we need, like a third party where, hey, we're here to do this. This is what we're going to do, and it's more so, for, I can't say it can just be for Black people because obviously this is the United States of America, but we have a party where our agenda is not only being pushed and looked at, but actually implemented. Some of the things are actually being implemented, and I think that's what we kind of lack in this country sometimes, is that their campaign promises, they just don't come they don't live up to what they campaigned on. And I know it's a lot of external factors that factor into, their overall decision of what they can do and what they can't do in their 4 years. The economy is always, up and down. Maybe they need to focus on that. Maybe they need to focus
Right.
on healthcare. And then that black agenda gets pulled to the back burner. But we need a party, or, either one of the two parties or even a third party that is going to not only review our black agenda, maybe, add some new things, take out some things, but actually going to put that plan into action. And that's the way I feel like we're going to, progress here in this country, moving forward into the future. Because, I mean, um, we've been doing kind of the same things for the last 200 some years.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and we've made a little bit of progress, but I feel like we could be so much further down into being an actual equal country where everyone feels like their voice is heard and that justice is truly served. And that's how I feel like we can you know really move forward into the future. But on the topic of just I know like police brutality in this country, it is, I don't know if it's heightened here or if it's I know it happens a lot, but I know that feeling that I feel sometimes if I get stopped by, like just that initial fear that you have, um, is there. And the funny, well, not funny thing, but the curious thing is when I was in another country in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
I saw this lady, like this cop pulled behind a lady and he was blowing at her, like, like move out of the way while you're in the middle of the street. She's like, she gets out of her car. She's like, you don't tell me to move. I'm not moving. I'm moving. I want to. And I'm like, wow. In America, she would have got shot.
Right.
I
Right.
feel like,
Right,
or they would
Right.
have been like, ma'am, get back in your car, with a gun drawn if she did.
Right.
right.
Like, do not get out of your car, until he comes up to yours. And, I was just like, I was literally was like clutching my pearls.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, she's still alive. And so I really feel like, we do need to change some of the way, the protocols. I mean, maybe there's a lot more fear here. I don't know. It's a mixing
um,
pot here too, but
I just
I still
think
just,
I think we've got a whole. It's a definitely a cultural thing. I really do believe that, and that's really um, a separate topic. And really, I think to to what both of you are saying and closing out this segment, that my view is really that we have an old establishment, and just look at here in America, we regurgitate and recycle the same old thought processes that keep us in the Stone Age. You know, nothing against Biden. The man is a relic. Yes, he has experience, but sometimes your experience does not still make you qualified to do the job in the current times. We live in a different day and age. We have so many young and talented black, white, brown, yellow, uh, up and coming politicians that are ready to do the job now and speak to the issues that we're dealing with today. But for whatever reason, in American politics, we get stuck on relics. They were great for their time, and it's like any industry. And I hate to say, even for myself, you're good, you're great at what you do, but at some point in time, because it's human nature, you have your own thought patterns on how things should be done. You have certain things that are ingrained in you from experience at work that you just carry with you as you advance. And it's very hard for us, just as human beings, to change or alter our thoughts. And our problem with the Supreme Court, you have people that are stuck in a thought that when they look at us or they view us a certain way, they write laws, and laws are being written and passed down to people that are punishing us based on our color. Our government really needs to revamp. I'll just thought, Beto Rocks and the Pete Buttigieg, and there's so much talent out here that we again have our news and our media navigates us with this idiot box on who you should be looking at, because we have become lazy as a society. And I'm just going to leave it there. We have to open up our mind and really find out who's in our backyard. The young talent, the people with the energy that's going to go out and do a lot of things that we're sitting here talking about today, that are willing to stand up and stand out and are not afraid to make change for people who look just like them. And on
No.
that note, yes, Lise, I mean, cut you. Go ahead.
I was just reading one of the comments, but I'm sorry. I was just reading one of the comments. Daniel Abbott said, I don't think we can move forward with respect without our own political party. We have as assimilated into a culture that wasn't created with us in mind.
I agree. I can agree with that because I mean, just thinking of some other governments that sometimes they've had to create their own party to be able to push their agenda through in its entirety. So I can agree with that too.
I do too. I definitely agree. I know that we've been fighting this uphill battle that it's just that it's just an uphill battle when we have any type of progress or any kind of obstacle. There are many that we have to overcome just for basic things like we've covered in this segment, like voter suppression, Breonna Taylor, police brutality. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and it is just so apparent that these are things that was designed to keep away from us, and we are just saying no, so we fight back and we get a little crumb and we get a little crumb and we get a little crumb. And
Gotta
I
stop taking
mean,
those crops.
Mm-hmm.
we have to reject the crumbs.
Exactly. Yeah, I said that one day. I was like, we have to stop with the breadcrumbs and really fight for real justice and real answers. Like, in this case with Breonna Taylor, right? Let's just say as a collective, she had some advisors to say, hey, we're not taking this money. Not saying she shouldn't have. I'm just saying, like, that, in my opinion, was a breadcrumb, because this happened in Baltimore. They gave the family money. This happens in, a lot of American cities. They just give them money. But what is the real change? Like, we need to stop taking those breadcrumbs and say, hey, this is what we want. We are not going to stop with this, our appeal process, our fighting for equal justice until we get actual, real, equal justice under the law, which is what you guys, or not you guys, but our forefathers of this country, wanted us to be able to have. So I definitely think I agree with you that we have to stop taking those breadcrumbs and really lay out and stick to what we say. It's just like a person saying, "I'm not innocent. I'm not innocent. I'm not innocent." And they're like, "Hey, if you take this plea deal and say you're guilty, we'll let you out." A lot of people
Right.
do that because they just want their freedom. They just want to be out. But instead of saying, "No, I'm not guilty. I'm not leaving here until I get my amnesty, no, my
Mm-hmm.
unconditional amnesty. I know I didn't do this." Now, a lot of people don't have the tenacity or the ambition to do that, but there are people out here who are able to do that. And so we, like I said, we need to definitely, to your point, stop taking those breadcrumbs and really, really get what we're want. If we're writing out this contract for Black America, everything that's in it, we need to support it wholeheartedly and not just like, okay, you're going to give me this one, but you're not going to give me this one. No, you need to give me 1 through 10. Okay.
And you need to
And
give me 1 through 10, and it needs to be when am I getting it? How are these funds allocated? Where did these funds come from? And who's in charge of dispersing these funds and making sure that they get to where they're supposed to be? Because, see, we all fall under the minority when it comes down to the federal government. But then what you find is when they're dispersing these funds, it never really or hardly ever, or maybe just a small crumbs trickle down to the Black community. So there is, that. And then, we have our own, like you said, technique, our own separate, unique issues that the United States may deal with or may not, because the ideals that the forefathers put for us to have a democracy, we never really lived up to it. And their democracy, we have to understand that the greatest farce in this country is the hoax of a democracy, because when we the people was written, it was only written for white men who owned property, so we didn't include everybody from the beginning.
yes, definitely. Agree. In the,
Right, agreed.
I
I
know,
just,
like
So
I just, I can't. It's too much.
yeah,
they did say, in the preamble that, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. I don't feel like we're getting that domestic tranquility, And like you said, to your point, that we weren't kind of written into this whole preamble of the Constitution, obviously, but as a 100% an American citizen, I want to be able to live in my house in domestic tranquility, and I want to be able to, have that equal justice in the law, knowing that if I something happened to me, that my life wasn't in vain. Not that me
hmm
being I've done good things in life, but knowing that my life wasn't ended like this, in a pointless form of because of a clerical error, or you see what I'm saying. So
hmm
Yes, yes, or unfortunate happenstance. I mean,
I
anything.
want
anything.
I want to be able to live up to those ideologies that were written, even though they weren't written for us. Now that we are, American citizens, I want to be able to go and pull up this document that they had and say, hey, listen, this is what I was supposed to be awarded. So why are you not awarding it to me? So anytime you're working at a job, we have SOPs, we have standard operating
Right,
procedures, right?
right.
This is the process of what happens when this. We have fire drills. When you're a kid, you learn stop, drop, and roll. There's a process for
hmm
everything here in America. Why aren't we holding people accountable to what they wrote? It wasn't even
Right.
us, honestly. It was them. So
Yeah.
it's just that's just my take on it.
Okay. Well, at this point, I think I'm going to open it up. We have some people watching and listening. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Hey, how you doing, Corey? Uh, Jeff Hardy, thanks for watching. Daniel Abbott, see you out there. Rich Taylor. Anybody have any questions before we get ready to close out? Uh, no. Okay. None at this time. So before we go, Teknesha, you want to share with us anything that you're working on or anything that you may have coming up in the near future?
So as I know you guys interview me for my business, Empower
Mm-hmm.
You Career Coaching. So if you want to connect with me there, my Instagram, I'm Empower You Career Coaching. Pretty much everywhere I'm Empower You Career Coaching on Instagram. That's my website, Empower You. It's the letter U, coaching.com. But yeah, I'm over there working, helping people in their careers. So that's pretty much what I've been working on.
Okay. All right. Lisa, anything?
Yeah,
Wait a
I
minute.
would like, yes.
Let's see.
Oh, we got a question.
I'm trying to. I think so. This guy
Was
wants.
segregation a bad thing?
Ooh, I'm gonna let Technisha. I see Technisha got a hand up. Go ahead. Go ahead. Throw your hand. Go ahead.
Segregation here in America was a bad thing, yes, because they had this whole separate but equal thing, and it was never separate but equal. It was separate. Let's separate the races. We're going to give you guys everything that's subpar, and also we're going to give you this PTSD thinking or trauma to
Mm,
make you think that your hair isn't beautiful, your culture isn't beautiful, the way you dress isn't beautiful, your language isn't beautiful, and we're going to pretty much
Wow.
we want to, so to speak, whitewash you to think that your way of living isn't correct. I really do feel like segregation was. I know a lot of people are like integration is worse, but no, I don't believe that. We need to we need to cohabitate. We need that unity, that national unity that we don't really have, honestly. So segregation, if it was a good thing, I don't think they would have ever sought for integration. Was it good in the sense of maybe pride mostly? Yeah, I think that was it was good for maybe like Black pride. But as far as the segregation that happened here in America, I don't think it was good because it was supposed to be separate but equal, but it was never equal. It was always we were the scum of the earth and they were able to live in these lush, plush, neighborhoods. They were able to have the best schools, the best education. And, we were over here in a 1 room schoolhouse, barely being able to teach kids past the
Mm.
sixth grade with proper
Wow.
materials. That's why like Tuskegee was created, Bethune Cookman was created. Hampton University, all that is because they wanted to have a place for where they could still get that same equal, education. But literally, they still had to go to white donors in order to
Hmm.
build these schools. So the federal government should have been providing that funding, and they shouldn't have had to ever had to go to private donors. If they wanted to, it could have been an option. But
Right.
yeah, I don't think segregation here was good for any parts of like our psyche, our mental psyches, um, or any part of our culture or our lives.
Mm.
That's just my
Okay.
take on that.
Uh, um, Look, man, I'm gonna leave it right there because
There's another question
yeah, I'm
because
gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave that right there because she answered that very well. And I'm man, go ahead, Teknesha. I'm gonna leave it right there. We got another question.
Yes. Did you see it in the comment,
No, I
Daniel
don't see that.
Abbott? Okay.
Nope.
He said, how much do you think the inherent trauma has played a part in our relationship with the government?
Hmm. Well, I'm gonna go ahead, Lisa. Go, guess that's more in your wheelhouse. Go ahead.
Our trauma, our inherent trauma has played a very big part in who we are as black people in America.
Hmm.
The trauma comes and it's very very deep for people. When it comes to government, we have decided to go along to get along, and I think that that's why we're seeing so much turmoil in the black community, because the younger people, like we have on our show today, feel differently. We blindly did things over the years. We don't pay attention to anything that affects us locally. We do not demand in the cities to have our fair share when it comes down to schools, equal schools, because even though we did integrate, it didn't impact us a whole lot, except for we were able now to go to restaurants and we were able to coexist. But economically, education wise, it did not get us anywhere too far, in my personal opinion. And as far as with the government, our inherent mental illness and trauma that we suffered in the United States has made us complacent as a people as a whole. We do not inherently feel connected to each other. We do not feel like we are really brothers and sisters. So segregation and integration has taken that, because when we were segregated, we had all we had was each other. Now we're, feeling like individualism is a big
Hmm.
thing. We have classism, we have colorism, we have, all of these things that divide us. So inherently, our mental illness towards each other is
Hmm.
horrible, as we're
That's terrible.
seeing. And then it trickles to the government because they have free reign. We don't rebuke anything that goes on. Some people who are from inner cities move out of the inner cities and leave behind and never go back to say, hey, we fighting for education in these democratically run cities. Let's
Hmm.
be clear
Hmm.
that most of these democratically run cities have the worst education system, the highest rates of crime,
Hmm.
and the highest incarceration rate. So our mental illness comes from inherently self-hatred, and I'm going to just put it out there because we don't feel that we are involved in anything. We've so used to getting those crumbs that Teknesha so eloquently refers to, that we don't expect anything more. We don't
Hmm.
fight for more. And it plays a big part when it comes down to the government, because they know where we are. They look at us and they know where we are. We're not taken as a serious, viable threat as opposed to other nationalities within this nation, or other people that has an agenda, that stick together and does group economics to
Hmm.
push their
To,
agenda.
right.
We don't have group economics where we can push our agenda. We don't do anything other than what we've been doing, and that is, what
Yeah.
we inherently
Well, we
have been taught. I'm sorry for the
well,
long
no, no,
answer.
no. Well said. But that was a great question, Daniel. Thank you. For the question. Is there any other question before we go ahead and get ready to close out today?
Yes.
I'm what we got? Because I'm
Okay.
not. It's not popping up here
Okay.
in the
I
feed.
think this is coming from my watch party though. So,
Okay, that's probably why. Yeah, I'm not seeing the
yeah,
watch
it's
party.
Lorraine Turner, my cousin in
Mm,
California, says mental illness towards each other is so sad and disheartening. The education system I am working for provide and cater to brown um, more than black.
okay. Um, wow. I that's one I had to see her. That's a lot.
To unpack, but it
Yeah.
just goes to the minority thing, the people of color thing. We always wind up at the bottom of it all.
All when all things are said and done, and yes, David, that's correct. Unity amongst us. We need voting blocks and to learn to be together when we go out and we do anything. We talked about that earlier. Unity in our community is tough. We've got to figure out how to get out of the crab in the barrel mentality and tearing each other down and get together and work collectively um, in whatever we do, not just politics, but economics, infrastructure. Um, and we just got to get better at doing that. Um, Today's been an excellent show. I thank everyone for joining in and taking time out of your busy Sundays. Today's episode, this is brand new for us. This is actually going to be tomorrow's podcast. So if you didn't get a chance, you can always go back and watch this on Facebook Live. You can watch it again, or you can go ahead and download it, stream it tomorrow when it's released. While you're at it, and if you're here, if you haven't already, go over to www.2micsup.com. Go ahead and subscribe. It's totally free. This has been an amazing first season. We are coming towards the end. We're going to close it down. Um, Thank you. Teknesha has been with us before. She is an amazing young woman. She's doing great things in the community. So proud to have her as part of our extended family and our network. We're going to be following along. We're going to be tracking you and seeing what you're doing. You're an amazing, and thank you for taking time
I
out today
love
and joining us.
Technisha.
Yeah, she's
Yes.
amazing. She's amazing.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I love you both.
I love you too, sis. And at this time, family, like we always do. Well, actually, before that, if you haven't, go over to www.2mixup.com. Like I said, subscribe. Check out the catalog. We've grown immensely from our first episode to now. I apologize early on. We were, in our new stages. We had some technical difficulties, but the quality has grown and improved over our first season. Like I said, if anybody's interested in sponsoring or interested in being a guest speaker on the show, we're always looking for anyone that's a black-owned business or any person that's working hard to educate, empower, and positively impact our community. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like to be able to work together and share your story on our podcast. And like we always do at this time, stay safe, stay
Stay
blessed.
blessed.
Mike's out.
Lights out. Bye, guys.
Thank you both. Take care, everybody.
Bye.